Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, and welcome to our explanation video about speech organ. Hope you enjoy. We are from group 1 with the member of 3 people, that is Aryo Wijoyo Sekti, Karina Sri Rahayu, and me myself, Mawar Putriagra. So let's talk about speech organ. What is exactly speech organs are? Speech organs are the organs in which take part in the production of speech sounds. When we speak, air comes out through the lungs, and it is interfered at various places for the productions of sounds. Sounds cannot occur without air. Now let's get more in depth in how speech organs is linked to phonetics. Phonetics is the scientific study of speech sounds. It may be also described as the study of production, transmissions, and reception of speech sounds. It furthers the classifications of these sounds into consonant and vowel sounds. Phonetics is also concerned with the matter and place of articulations of these sounds. It also studies the stress and intonations used in the production of speech sounds by us. English speech sounds are produced when the airstreams coming from the lungs assumes various shapes in the mouth during the process of breathing. In other words, we can say that speech is as essential a function of these organs as are the other functions. Pulmonic aggressive airstream mechanism is used while producing sounds of English. The word pulmonic refers to lungs, and aggressive relates to throwing out. English is spoken when we throw air out from our mouth in the process of breathing. All European languages are spoken by employing the pulmonic aggressive airstream mechanism. Phonetics is the scientific study of what speech sounds exist in a language. It represents how the speech sounds are produced and perceived, and what acoustic properties they have. Thus, it can be described in the class of natural science. Phonetics essentially seeks to trace the process psychologically involved in sound production. It also describes the ways the sounds are produced and the point at which they are articulated. Phonology is concerned with the regularities that govern the speech sounds in words of a language. It looks at it and tries to establish a system of sounds distinctions relevant to a particular language. It then seeks to determine how the elements of this abstract system behave in actual speech. Phonology actually delineates the function of sounds in particular contexts. The organ of speech had been adapted by humans being for speech production. The most important source of speech production is the air system exhaled from the lungs. It is called the pulmonic aggressive air stream. It is also called mechanism because it is the process of airstream release that works together to form sounds. The English language generally makes us the pulmonic aggressive airstream mechanism for the production of speech sounds. There are also the classification of speech organs. Let's talk about them, shall we? Famous philologist David Crystals divides the articulators into two different ways, according to its mobility. The first one are active articulators. The active articulators does all or most of the movement when a speech sound is made. It is usually the lower lip or a part of the tongue because the tongue and the lower jaw are free moving. The second one is passive articulator. The passive articulator does little or no movement. It is the part of the place of articulation where the active articulator press against, usually the upper jaw, upper teeth, roof of the mouth, and pharynx. Now you know about that, let's go more in depth of how sounds are created. The first thing you have to know is the airstream released by the lungs goes through the windpipe and comes to the larynx, which contains the vocal cord. The vocal cord are two elastic folds which may be kept apart or brought together. The opening between them is called the glottis. If the tense vocal cords are brought together, the airstreams forcing and opening makes them vibrate and we hear some voices. On coming out the larynx, the airstreams passes through the pharynx. The pharyngeal cavity extends from the top of the larynx to the soft palate, which directs the airstreams either to the mouth or nasal cavities, which functions are the principal resonator. The soft palate is the furthest part of the palate from the teeth. Most of the palate is hard. This hard and fixed part are the palate is divided into two sections. The hard palate, the highest part of the palate, and the teeth ridge or alveolar ridge. The most important organ of the speech is the tongue. Phoneticans divide the tongue into four sections. The part which lies opposite the soft palate is called the back of the tongue. The part facing the hard palate is called the front. The one lying under the teeth ridge is known as the blade, and its extremity the tip. The lips can take up various positions as well. They can be brought firmly together or kept apart naturally, rounded or protruded forward. Now let's move on to another topic. Let's dive into descriptions and functions of the speech organ more thoroughly. Let's talk about the lungs, shall we? Most human sounds are produced with pulmonary airstream, i.e., lungs pushing the air outwards. During speech, the lungs take in air rapidly and let it go slowly. The lungs perform the function of breathing under the action of the chest muscles. The respiratory system is helpful in producing the speech sounds, in the sense that it provides the airstreams which act as source of energy. No speech organ can produce speech sounds without the presence of the air, which is provided by the lungs. The air released from lungs initiate the speech mechanisms. English speech sounds are produced with the help of pulmonic aggressive airstream mechanism. The respiratory systems play the very significant role in the production of speech sounds of a particular language. The respiratory systems, also called the gas exchange systems, release the carbon dioxide and taking in oxygen. Carbon dioxide, a waste product, goes out of the body. Oxygen, which the body needs, comes in. The lungs are the main organ to do this. In other words, we can say that the process of inhaling and exhaling oxidation of organic compounds is called as the respiratory systems. The first step in the process of inhaling and exhaling means bringing air rich in oxygen into the human body. The second step of the respiratory system is gas exchange in the lungs, where oxygen is diffused into the blood and the carbon dioxide diffuses out of the blood. The third process is cellular respiration, which produces the chemical energy that the cells in the body need, and carbon dioxide. Finally, the carbon dioxide from cellular energy is breathed out of the body from the lungs. The organ of speech are situated in the respiratory system, phonatory system, and articulatory systems of human body. And for the next speaker, it will be Karina Sri Rahayu. For her, you are welcome.
Nasal cavity. The nasal cavity is a large air-filled space above and behind the nose, in the middle of the face. The main function of the nasal cavity is to act as the main passageway for the airflow entering the lungs. The nasal cavity also filters the incoming air, regulates temperature, and humidifies the nasal passage to aid the filtering function. The nasopharynx leads into the nasal cavity, which is around 10 cm long, extending from the pharynx to nostrils. The nasal cavity lacks a muscular structure. Thus, it is the external factors such as the content of mucus and swelling of the tissues that affect the size and shape of the nasal cavity. These involuntary variations in the volume and geometry of the nasal cavity affect its resonant properties and its contributions to acoustic and perceptual characteristics of speech. The larynx, in the upper part of the trachea, is a muscular structure which called the larynx. It is responsible for producing voice, helping us swallow and breathe. It is commonly known as Adam's apple. Larynx has a skeletal frame which is formed by a series of cartilages and is connected to the lungs by the trachea. More protrude in case of mouth and is felt as the Adam's apple. Cartilages inside the larynx move with respect to each other in such a way that they help in producing speech and the vowing actions of the larynx. The cartilage that is hinged to the upper anterior part of the thyroid cartilage is known as the epiglottis. The main function of epiglottis is to prevent anterior food particle from entering the windpipe during swallowing. The pharynx. The pharynx is a tube which begins just above the larynx. It is about 7 cm long in women and about 8 cm in men, and at its top end it is divided into two, one part being the back of the mouth and the other being the beginning of the way through the nasal cavity. Pharynx can be divided into the following three functional areas. First, laryngopharynx is the lowest section of pharynx. It is bounded inferiorly by the glottis and superiorly by the hyoid bone. Second, nasopharynx is the upper section of the pharynx. It is bounded inferiorly by the soft palate and extends to the nasal passage. And the last one, the middle section, is the oral pharynx, which is bounded inferiorly by the hyoid bone and superiorly by the soft palate. The tongue. The tongue is an important organ of speech. It is divided into four parts: the tip, the blade, the front, and the back. The number of vowels is produced with the help of the tongue. The tip of the tongue helps to produce the, the, and etc. The blade of the tongue helps to produce ch, the, sh, and etc. The front of the tongue helps to produce palatal sound, y, and the back of the tongue helps to produce k and g sounds. For example, shock, 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 shock. Tongue lies in the oral cavity and consists largely of muscle, with an outer covering of mucous membrane and a fibrous septum dividing it longitudinally. It is anchored anteriorly by some of its extrinsic muscle to the hyoid bone. Among all the organs of speech situated within the oral cavity, the tongue makes the greatest contributions to changes in the shape and volume of the oral cavity. The uvula. The uvula is a small finger-shaped piece of tissue that hangs down from the soft palate at the back of the throat. The uvula functions together with the palate, the back of the throat, and air from the lungs to create a variety of sounds used for speech. The lower lip. The lower lip can be moved to produce different sounds. It makes contact with the upper lip to produce sound. The upper lip. In speech production, it is lower lip that reaches up to make contact with it and create different sound. The upper lip and lower lip help to produce bilabial sounds. B, b, m. If the lips are held together, they produce different vowels. For example, bop, pop, mom. Upper and lower lip are two fleshy folds that are richly supplied with muscles. They are formed externally of skin or internally made of mucous membrane. Due to the muscles, the lips show considerable plasticity and mobility, thus contribute significantly to a range of vocal tract configurations possible in the articulations of speech. That's all from me, and the next material will be explained by Aryo.
Okay, I will continue my friend's explanation. Oral cavity. The first section of the mouth is known as the oral cavity or the mouth cavity. This entire structure is also called the mouth. The structure within the mouth allows us to manipulate the air that comes out from the voice box so that we can form words. Voiced continuous sounds involving no interruption in the flow of air through the oral cavity is called vowels. Different vowels sounds result from changing the shape of mouth. Each vowel is associated with a different configuration of the tongue and lips. For example, to say E represented phonetically as I. The lips are somewhat pulled back and the tongue is archived up toward the palate. To say U as in Wu and Su represented as U. The tongue is raised toward the back of the mouth and the lips are rounded and pushed forward. The teeth. The teeth take part in the production of consonant sounds. The upper teeth only take part in the production of speech sounds. The teeth are usually only at the front of the mouth, immediately behind the lips. You should remember that most speakers have teeth to the side of their mouths, back almost to the soft palate. The tongue is contact with the upper side teeth for many speech sounds. Sounds made with the tongue touching the front teeth are called dental. The teeth are parts of the organ of speech that make sound production easier in humans. Roach, 2005, opines that the teeth are located in front of the mouth, immediately behind the lips to the side of the mouth, back almost to the soft palate. Chukwuma and Otak Burwagu, 2002, are of the view that the teeth are static and not mobile like the tongue, and sound produced by the tongue and teeth are called interdental or dental sounds. A practical oral exercise will prove that the tongue also assists the teeth in sound production. Alveolar ridge. The alveolar ridge is the part between the upper teeth and the hard palate. It is a hump directly behind the teeth. It is between the top front teeth and the hard palate. You can feel its shape with your tongue. Its surface is really much ruggeder than it feels, and is covered with little ridges. You can only see this if you have a mirror small enough to go inside your mouth, such as those used by dentists. Sounds made with the tongue touching here, such as t and d, are called alveolar. The hard palate is a thin horizontal bony plate of the skull, located in the pop of the mouth. It is important for speech. The interaction between the tongue and the hard palate is essential in the formation of certain speech sounds, notably f, t. The soft palate is called uvula. When it is lowered, the nasal sound m, n are produced. When it is raised, The air passes out through the oral cavity, and the oral sounds such as K, T, and etc. are produced. Soft palate has holes performing that function during speech to separate the oral cavity, which is the nose, in order to produce the oral speech sounds. Manet and Madrid explain that if this separation is incomplete, air is kept through the nose during speech, and the speech is perceived as hypernasal. The vocal cords. The vocal cords are responsible for the voicing of speech sounds. Voicing in the vocal cords could either be voiced or voiceless. The voiced sounds are 7, and they are and then these other 7 sounds can be regarded as voiceless because no vibration takes place in the vocal cord during sound production. The ear. Although the ear is not a measure of organ speech, it is important in the production of speech sound. The main organ of hearing is the ear, with help which speech is heard and interpreted. And the human ear may be divided into 3: the outer, the middle, and the inner ear. According to www.pdffactory.com, the outer ear plays a protective role for the middle ear and functions as a resonator, while the middle ear is a cavity within the skull and plays an important role as a protector of the inner ear and transmit the mechanic vibration of the membrane further the inner ear, which is the complicated section of the ear. The other section of the ear include the semicircular canals with the cochlea filled with liquid, and inside the cochlea are 2 membranes. After knowing all of that, we can conclude that producing different speech sounds depends on the movement of speech organ, such as the upper lip, lower lip, the teeth, and etc. It is essential to know the movement and the placement of each organ to produce particular sounds. The above description and function of the organ of speech help you to guide other people to produce the consonants and vowels in the right way. Here are the sources that we used to make this video. And that's all about speech organ video from Group 1 that consists of me, Aryo Wijayasakti, and 2 of my friends, Karina Sri Rahayu and Mawar Putri. We're so sorry if there is a mistake on our video, and thank you for your attention and for listening this video until the end. So I will close this video by saying wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.